Coming up on today's edition of the Bullpen with Adam the Bull, we talk about Deshaun Watson in a collision, Caitlin Clark not on the Olympic team, and the Boston Celtics are 2 wins away from their latest NBA championship. That's all coming up on this edition of the Bullpen with Adam the Bull, brought to you by BetRivers.
You're watching Adam the Bull on the BetRivers Network.
Folks, if you're not using the BetRivers app, you're missing out. Get my parlays on Tuesdays and Fridays, and you can bet on not that you need my parlay to bet on a parlay. You can bet on any parlay, spreads, over-unders. You can bet on almost anything in almost any sport. Obviously, right now we got the NBA Finals going on, the Stanley Cup Finals, Major League Baseball, of course, and before you know it, the NFL will be here, and that's where we're going to start. Deshaun Watson gave every Browns fan a scary moment over the weekend. David Njoku did his annual charity softball game. It was a great event. Travis Kelce was there, outlasted Kareem Hunt. I think the final was 14-13 in the home run derby there for the championship. And they played the softball game, and at one point, Deshaun Watson collided with, I can't remember the name of the player on the Browns, some rookie undrafted backup. They collided. He was down on the ground. Apparently, he's fine, but I think even still, I'm still holding my breath a little bit because, let's face it, it feels like the Browns need to wrap Deshaun Watson in bubble wrap because you got to keep this guy healthy. We can argue all day long about how well he's played. I mean, to me, there's no argument, but he hasn't played enough in the last 3 seasons. He held out for 17 games. He was suspended for 11 games, and he's been injured for, whatever it is, 7-8 games. He's missed a crazy amount of time. And fortunately, Deshaun Watson is still a young enough player that it's reasonable to think that he could bounce back and stay healthy. There have been guys who have gone through stretches of injury, and then as they get to the middle of their career, they're able to kind of right the ship. And earlier in Deshaun Watson's career, I wouldn't have, I didn't really think of him as injury prone. He played most of the games that he was when he was in Houston. It wasn't like he missed huge chunks of time there consistently. So he has a chance to kind of turn this reputation around of being an injury-prone player. And I think the fascinating thing for the Browns, and for a lot of teams, but we care about the Browns, but the fascinating thing is the game plan for the preseason. We've seen more and more teams not using their starters in the preseason as we've gone down to 3 games, and we've seen the starters, especially the key starters, playing less and less snaps, which leaves the early weeks of the season a little more unpredictable. And where it's a little harder, from our business perspective, right? When you have a point spread on a game, wacky things happen the first couple of weeks because a lot of guys are not ready for the start of the season because they don't play enough. Yeah, and you deal with this balance of do I play a guy to get him in form, in good form for the start of the season, or is the risk of injury too high? And that's what the Browns are dealing with, obviously, now. Now, when you look at and especially with a quarterback, in the case of Nick Chubb, I think it's unanimous and definitely obvious that Nick Chubb, even if he's ready to go, let's say Nick Chubb, when training camp starts in whatever it is, 6 weeks, probably closer to about 7 weeks, I think, give or take, training camp starts. Let's say Nick Chubb is ready to begin practicing. He may practice, in non-contact drills. But I can't imagine there's any chance that we will see Nick Chubb take a preseason snap. In fact, I would be as bold to say, and I say that sarcastically, that Nick Chubb has taken his last ever preseason snap in the NFL. Whether he's in Cleveland after this year, hopefully he is, or not. I can't imagine Nick Chubb's ever going to play in the preseason again. Why would you? Why would you risk it? Not at that position. When you talk about quarterback, it's a different story, especially a quarterback that has missed about 80% of the last 3 seasons. So with Deshaun Watson, we have seen legitimate rust at times. And I don't say that as an excuse because obviously I've been critical of Deshaun Watson's play. It's not been good enough. But a factor in it is the rust. There's no doubt. That was something I think we all, myself certainly included, took for granted. And I think the combination of the rust and the overcoming of the mental hurdles, whether you believe they're self-inflicted or not, those two things have been undervalued in their importance. I know by me, not anymore, but initially. I did not really think either of those things would be a huge factor. I certainly didn't think either of those things would be a factor. In fact, I totally dismissed the mental part of it. I didn't even think about that. I'm not going to be phony. But the rust part, I thought we'd see some when he first came back at the end of the 22 season. I did not think it would be a factor last year, and I certainly didn't think it would be a factor this year, and it still will be. And the question is, will Deshaun Watson take any snaps in the preseason? I don't know the answer to that. Obviously, Kevin Stefanski's been cautious with injured players. But, again, the guy has not really played. So, and we're potentially talking about a whole new system. And, it does appear that Ken Dorsey is going to call the plays this year. The Browns haven't made anything official, but that appears to be the way it's trending. And even if he's not, the offense is going to change. It's going to be different this year. And there are new elements within that offense. There's some additions to the running back group. Obviously, Jerry Jeudy's in the mix now. And so Deshaun Watson being on the field, developing some chemistry with those guys is important. I think for me, even though the rust has been obvious and it's still going to be a factor probably early this season, not an excuse, but a factor, I would still not play him in the preseason. I wouldn't. I would not have Deshaun Watson take a single snap in the preseason. As I said, I would obviously not have Nick Chubb take a single snap in the preseason. And frankly, I wouldn't have Amari Cooper take a single snap in the preseason either. That's your most important quarterback, your most important running back, your most important wide receiver. 2 coming off injuries. The third is old. Amari Cooper's old for a wide receiver, not old for most people. So, and Amari Cooper, if Deshaun Watson's not out there, what do I need Amari Cooper out there for? To develop chemistry with Jameis Winston? We'll figure that out if that needs to be done. But Amari Cooper is a consummate pro. He runs every route properly. I don't need to see him in the preseason. I don't want to see, and maybe this is a soft attitude. I don't know. I just knocked the camera. And maybe it's the wrong thing to do, but I don't think so. I think after a season you dealt with last year, you want to keep these key guys healthy. I understand it may lead to some rust, especially for Deshaun Watson early in the season. But I think the majority of other teams are going to do this as well. You think Dak Prescott's going to play a ton in the preseason? You think CD Lamb's going to play a ton in the preseason? I know Zeke Elliott, who's, as of now, the Cowboys starting running back again. I can't imagine he's going to take any snaps in the preseason, and that's who you play in week 1. So they're going to be in the same boat. Now, I guess Dak's more likely to play a little bit than Deshaun, or I shouldn't say more likely. He's not coming off a serious injury like Deshaun is. I don't know what the philosophies are. The philosophy of the Cowboys will be this year. I can't remember what it was last year. But I would be extremely cautious. And to me, I don't want to see Deshaun Watson, Nick Chubb, or Amari Cooper take a single hit before week 1. Might I regret that? Time will tell, but I don't think so. I think you can have all those guys get reps in practice, in scrimmages, without taking any serious hits. I mean, honestly, I don't know if Nick Chubb needs to do anything. But Amari Cooper and Deshaun Watson could work together in practice plenty. Scrimmages. But I want to see that. I want to see, much like the shirt I'm wearing, I want to see the red jersey on Deshaun Watson. And I don't want him to take a single hit in the preseason. I don't think. And let's say, okay, well, let's say you had him in for 6 snaps. I think they did. Was it last year or 2? I don't even remember. 2 years ago now, because he was able to play in the preseason before he sat out the suspension. Is 5 snaps or 6 or even 20 snaps really going to make a difference in the rest versus rust? But it could, because it could make a difference in terms of injury. And I know the argument, and I've probably made this argument in the past. Well, if you're so worried about him getting hurt in the preseason, he's not going to last a year anyway. And maybe that's true. But why take a chance? In the regular season, it is what it is. I need him to play. I need him to win games. I need him to risk injury. He needs to risk injury. That's just part of being a football player. And the way, because the league is so much trending in that direction, I think it's the wise move to not have Deshaun Watson play at all. Not a single snap in any of these 3 preseason games. As for the preseason games, the times were officially announced late last week. The Browns' first preseason game is exactly 1 month from, exactly 2 months from today. Exactly 2 months from today. August the 10th, they will be about, 16 minutes away from where I am at Brown Stadium in downtown Cleveland, right on the lake. A 4:25 start against the Packers on August 10th. I believe that's a Saturday. Let me double check that. I guess I should probably know that off the top of my head. I'm pretty sure it's a Saturday, right? Yeah. Then they'll play the following Saturday, also at home against the Vikings. That's also a 4:25 start. And then finally, they'll play on Saturday, August 24th, the last preseason game in Seattle at 10 p.m. Eastern. Just kind of crazy. I don't know if there'll be much worth in watching in that game anyway, but if you want to watch it, you're going to have to stay up till about 1 in the morning to see the end of that game. On that, and then, of course, 2 weeks off before the Browns play their season opener at home against the Cowboys. So there you go. 2 home games in the preseason, because this is the year that the NFC has the 9 home games and the AFC has the 8 home games, which means you get the second preseason game. Big deal. Also, as 87 people reported on Twitter on, I think, Friday or Saturday, the Browns signed their highest draft pick, the 22nd pick of the second round, Michael Hall Jr., defensive tackle out of Ohio State. There are no holdouts anymore in the NFL, which is a good thing. And that's why it's kind of meaningless when you report signings of contracts. But I guess you'd rather get it done sooner than later. There always ends up being like 1 or 2 guys or a couple of guys that sign right as training camp starts. So it's good that it's done. But all the Browns players, all their draft picks, the 6 guys they took, expected to be in camp. How many make the team? Who knows? Obviously, the 3 of their 6 picks were either in the 7th round, or Nathaniel Watson was one of the last picks of the 6th round. But Michael Holt Jr., Zach Zinter, and Jamari Thrash, unless they're hurt, will be on this roster. There's no doubt that those 3 will be on the 53. I think the other 3 are certainly no locks to make the team, and that's because the Browns are in a situation that we've pretty much never seen before last year, or at least not we've not seen in a very long time, I should say. And that's, they have a roster with very good depth, with a lot of talent, and guys are not handed jobs for so many years. that I've covered this team from 2011 until recently, guys were handed jobs. Guys had easy chance of getting on the roster because there was little to no talent. But those days have certainly changed. And the Browns now have, top to bottom, as much talent as maybe they've ever had, and certainly in the last 3 decades plus. And that's a good thing. If guys can't make the roster because there's too many good players, that's a good thing. That's positive. And that's the position that I believe the Browns are in these days. Good weekend for the Guardians. Real quick, they bounced back against the Marlins, took 2 of 3. I shouldn't say bounce back. They, split 2 with the Royals. They'd lost 2 in a row. The last game, the Royals lost the first game to the Marlins. Last 2 days, the Bats got cooking again. They outscored the Marlins in the final 2 games of that series, 14-3. They're off again. It's a weird stretch. The Guardians played a ton of days in a row. Then they were off last Thursday. No. They were off last Monday. And then they were off they're off today. They're off this Thursday, and then they're off, I think, again next Monday. So 4 days off in 15 days after they had played, I think, actually 16, 17 days in a row or something like that. But a 2-game series coming up with Cincinnati. The cross-state series here. They'll play tomorrow, and I want to see the pitching matchups in that 2-game series. Let's see. We got Tristan McKenzie against to be determined on Tuesday, and then Tanner Bybee and Nick Lodolo on Wednesday, and then I said the day off. And then they conclude the road trip this weekend in Toronto, and then the Guardians come home for a 6-game series after a Monday day off, 3 with Seattle and 3 with Toronto. That'll be an interesting series against Seattle. Seattle's in first place. They're playing very well. They've got excellent pitching, and I believe they're it looks like they'll have their top two of their top 3 starters and 3 of their 4 top starters will be pitching here in Cleveland, barring rainouts or whatever. So the Guardians begin the week at 42-22. Only the Yankees and the Phillies. Yankees and Phillies are top. I don't know. The Phillies actually have a better record, 45-20. Yankees at 46-21, and then the Guardians and the Orioles tied at 42-22. Guardians are in first place in the Central by 4 over Kansas City. They have a plus 90 run differential. The Yankees, the Orioles, and the Phillies are the only teams. Oh, no, the Dodgers at plus 92, despite their loss to the Yankees last night. Dodgers took 2 out of 3 from the Yankees over the weekend. All right. Let's get to the NBA Finals. Kyrie Irving has been terrible in these first 2 games. First game, he was awful. The second game, he got off to a decent start, and he made a couple of. I shouldn't say he was awful. That's a little strong. Kyrie didn't play. He was awful in the first game. He was better in game 2, but still not a great game for Kyrie. 16 points, 6 assists. He was 7 of 18 from the field. I believe he has not made a 3-pointer in this series so far. He has not made a 3-point shot in the first 2 games of this series. He is not shooting the ball well at all. Doncic is, trying to carry him. Although the rest of the Mavericks starting lineup last night, besides Kyrie, was 28 of 50 from the field. I mean, that's almost 60% between Gafford, Jones, Washington, and Doncic. But Kyrie not good. The bench not good for Dallas. Jason Tatum was terrible shooting the ball. In fact, the Celtics shot 26% from 3, but the Mavs shot 23%. And it was Drew Holiday was the star. You got all these big names, right? Kyrie, Luka, Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum. But the best player last night was Drew Holiday. It was 11 of 14 from the field. He had 26 points, 11 rebounds, and 3 assists. Jason Tatum, 1 rebound shy of a triple-double, but he was 6 of 22 from the field and 1 of 7 from 3. So you look at their best 3-point shooters, in the playoffs, White, Brown, and Tatum, they combined to go 6 for 22 from 3, and the Celtics still win the game by 7 points, 105-98. Big lead at halftime. Mavs made a run, but it wasn't enough. So they're up 2-0 in this series. And game 3 is Wednesday, I think, right? Yeah, Wednesday in Dallas. And then Friday. So there you go. We'll see if the Mavs can. No, wait a second. Yeah, right. Wednesday at Dallas is the next game. All right, finally, Caitlin Clark back in the news again. This is so silly, all of this stuff. I gave you thoughts on it before, but the hubbub about her not making the Olympics is kind of crazy to me. And it shows once again the polarizing nature, unfortunately. Caitlin Clark, it's a little like, I was going to compare it to the Tim Tebow situation, but that's unfair. Caitlin Clark is going to be eventually a good WNBA player. She's not right now, but Tim Tebow was not an NFL player, and him being drafted in the first round was one of the dumbest things I've ever seen in the history of the NFL. He was a terrible NFL player, but Caitlin Clark will probably be a very good, maybe the best. I don't know, down the line. Who knows? I don't know enough about WNBA. What I do know is she's not playing well right now. People being up in arms. It's funny to me that people are up in arms. Last week I was up in arms because of the cheap shot she took, and deservedly so, and the reaction to it was ridiculous. But now people are up in arms because she didn't make the Olympic team. First of all, who cares? Because most of the people that are up in arms about it wouldn't care about the Olympic team if it wasn't for her. So I don't want to hear your complaints about it because you don't care. You only care because it's her. And if she were on the team, that's fine. The dream team had Christian Laettner on it because he was a popular college player. He didn't deserve to be on the team. He wasn't one of the 12 or I don't remember how many players make the team, 15. He wasn't one of the best players in the country, but he was the probably the second best college player behind Shaq. And he had just had, he made a big name for himself. And if they wanted to put Caitlin Clark on the team because she brings eyeballs to the games, which she obviously does, then that would have been fine. But I can't be up in arms that she didn't make it. She didn't deserve to make it. She would have only been on for business reasons. And I'm always bothered when that happens. I don't like when and Caitlin Clark's not, maybe she's bothered by it. She didn't seem bothered by it when she spoke. She knows she's not one of the 15 best players in America. She's not. She was the best college player. She's an incredible talent and someday will be one of the 15 or 12, whatever it is, best players in America. She's not right now. So what's the beef? Who cares that she didn't make it? It's just silly. It's, again, something out of nothing. She's a great talent. She's handled herself in the WNBA with a ton of class. I like her. I'm more interested because of her. I am. She's created a buzz, and I think that's great. But ultimately, we always complain, or I shouldn't say we. I complain when people get benefits because of who they know or who they are or, whatever. I like people to earn it. She didn't earn it. That's completely fair. There's no argument against that. So stop it. Now, you want to argue she's being left off because the other players don't want to play with her. Maybe. I don't know. I don't think every player hates her. This narrative that every player hates her guts is stupid. I don't buy that. Yes, there's some jealousy, as we'd all feel if you'd been kicking ass for years and one player comes new into the league and is making more money than everybody without earning it at the highest level. I get it. Most people be pissed if they're honest about it. It's not her fault. Shouldn't take it out on her. It is what it is. But she's not one of the best players in the country right now. It's obvious. Come on. She's struggling in the WNBA. Her team's not very good. Again, I'm not an authority on it, but she's struggling. That's it. As most rookies do when they go from being college to professional. It's because it's women's sports. I don't know if people thought, well, it's women's sports, so she's going to dominate. No. These women can play. They're professionals. They're tough. It's going to take her time to become one of the best players in the league. So the people being worked up about it, to me, is just stupid. Anyway, that's it for me for today. Thanks to Monzo for producing. Thanks to all of you for watching and listening. please hit the subscribe button. Please hit the like button. And we got Adam Kaplan, covers the NFL, does a lot of fantasy football stuff. He'll join me on Wednesday's podcast. We'll talk to you next time. Where else but right here in the bullpen with Adam the Bull, brought to you by BetRivers. See you, everybody.